At 4 p.m. on August 11th, 2020, reporters eagerly gathered in the press room of the sheriff's office for the revelation of a 34-year-old mystery. In January of 1986, an unidentified female body was found in a creek along Interstate 70 in Saline County. Efforts to identify her had been unsuccessful. That is, until Monday morning, when she was positively identified through DNA and dental evidence. What follows is the press conference with full details about the woman formerly nicknamed Miss Molly.
January 25th, 1986, Saline County Sheriff's Office took a call and worked an incident on I-70 at milepost 237, which is where Mulberry Creek goes underneath I-70. They had a report of a woman found dead in the stream out there. There was quite an extensive investigation that's followed that over the course of these 34 years. We've had numerous leads, hundreds and thousands of leads from all over the country and all over the world. And one thing that's happened in the last few years that's come up that's been a problem for us is we didn't have a modern DNA profile for the victim. We've worked all this time, we've had a lot of missing person reports that have been called into us, so that's kind of been our push the last couple of years, is to try and to get a good DNA profile. In the spring of 2019, the FBI offered DNA collection services to us in response to a request from Interpol. My understanding is that they had someone in the Netherlands that the dental records were a close match. Some teeth were missing, but they thought that it would be a good match. They wanted a DNA profile to match against that person, so the FBI solved the laboratory side of it. The Saline County attorney had secured us an exhumation order and a search warrant for the exhumation and collection of those items to create a DNA profile with the FBI, and that was executed July 29th of 2019. In January of 2020, that DNA profile was completed, and the FBI entered it to CODIS, and there was no match. And after I got notified that there was no match, I started inquiring what it takes to run that DNA profile or to move it over to some of the public DNA profile services that are out there. And we were looking into that when in late February we were notified that there was a familiar match made and they needed to do some checking. And what came of that DNA match is in 2017, the state of Minnesota had numerous unidentified bodies around the state of Minnesota. And so they had put out to family members that had missing family members to come in and submit their DNA. And that would be put in a database that would, my understanding is around every 6 months, would be run against the DNA of found persons. So late February, that DNA was run, that was collected in 2017, it was run through CODIS, and they did get this match. Since then, through laboratory analysis and dental records, we have got a positive identification of the lady that was found in 1986 in rural Saline County. Miss Molly has been identified as Robin Ann Green. She was 28 at the time. Robin Green was from Los Angeles, California, and from the information we've obtained so far, the last time she was seen was December 28th in 1985. We know Robin Green was last seen, with the information we have, with Michael Lewis Green. They've been together at least a short time, and we believe they were married. They did own a residence together in California, and the information that we've received from family members is that, from their understanding, the house that they had been living in had been seized as part of a drug investigation. Robin Green's family has made a request to us not to identify them at this time. They didn't say that it'd be forever, but they don't feel comfortable right now. They've got a lot to take in, so they've asked not to identify them. They were here this last weekend. I met with them, and they were able to come and visit the gravesite and take a tour of the county. They decided that with the history that Miss Molly had here, that they want to leave her remains here, and they're going to make arrangements for a stone with her proper family name on it. As a reminder, this is still an open homicide investigation. We have been conducting some interviews with, and it's pretty tough given the age, but with people that we know she was associated with in that time frame. So the ones that are still alive anyway, we've been trying to make contact with them. With that said, I would try to field some questions if we can, noting it's still an open investigation.
How did she end up from California to I-70 Saline County, Kansas?
That's a good question. We do know that when she was seen, she had family members in Minnesota, and so she'd been to Minnesota, was the last place that she'd been seen.
Do you believe she was murdered here?
I don't know that.
And is she connected to any of the unidentified bodies in Minnesota possibly, or?
None that we're aware of, no.
Do you know if Michael Green still lives?
Michael Green has been dead since 2007.
Though you can't say, the family doesn't want to be identified, can you identify the connections?
The family members that we've met were her ex-husband and children. And her children at that time were less than 5 years old.
I guess if you can talk about her children, what did they know about this, or what had they been told, as far as their mom's disappearance?
They just knew that their mom had left them with their father and never come home, never stopped again to pick them up.
So was she listed as a missing person anywhere?
She was never listed as a missing person. But there was, from what the family has told us, the criminal investigation that was going on in California, they were in constant contact from law enforcement, so they assumed that there wasn't any reason to report her missing because they knew the law enforcement was looking for her.
I guess when she took the trip to Minnesota, was she traveling by herself, or was she traveling with other people?
No, she traveled with Michael Green.
She's from LA and goes to Minnesota. You say that Minnesota has family members to give DNA. Why is her family in LA or in Minnesota?
She has family in Minnesota. And their daughters, the girls, had seen a thing asking, Minnesota was requesting DNA profile if you had a missing relative, and so they did. They went in and one of them submitted DNA.
Those are children that submitted the DNA?
Yes.
Okay, let me see if I'm missing something. So, she was traveling to see family in Minnesota in 2017.
No.
No,
In 1985.
1980, I'm sorry, in 1985, but then there came some questions in Minnesota.
In 2017, they
In
had,
2017.
my understanding is there's more than 50 unidentified bodies
Okay,
around the state of Minnesota that they're trying to match up with family.
and so that just came out as a general call because there were
Yes.
so many
Yes.
missing bodies.
Right.
Okay,
Had nothing to do with her, it was just,
I gotcha.
they were trying to match family
Okay.
members.
I guess, can you go into, as far as, when she went to visit family in Minnesota, are we talking like aunts and uncles, or like
No,
parents?
she went to see her children who were living with the father.
But if she was never listed as a missing person, and in Minnesota they were asking for people who had missing people to give their DNA, why would her daughter think to do that if she wasn't listed?
They were missing her. One of the things that had happened was, after a period of 10 years, the children were small. So after a period of 10 years, the ex-husband had her pronounced dead because he was looking for some support. And once that happened, when the girls got old enough, they said they tried to make a missing persons report, but you can't make a missing person report on someone who's got a death certificate.
So what about you guys? This department's been working this for 30+ years. What are your feelings now? What are you doing going forward?
Going forward, we'll follow up on the leads that we've gotten, look into what kind of activity there was, and we've requested case files from some of the cases that were involved in back then.
will this be still your investigation? I mean, since we don't know where the murder took place?
Yes, because the body was found here.
I guess, are you looking at her husband as a potential suspect or potentially involved?
I don't think we can rule that out, but, you know, we really don't know what the circumstances were.
And how complicated can that be since you said he's deceased, right?
Very,
Oh.
be very complicated. Yeah, you know, the best we can hope for is that someone from that time frame has information that they've been sitting on for 34 years.
Though this is your case, procedurally, let's say, for example, you needed to question somebody in California or Minnesota for that matter. Do you have those localities start that process and then decide if you need to go further with them?
Right, we can either request assistance from federal agencies or the local agency in that area, and if it warrants a visit, we can send officers there to visit.
How many unsolved homicides do you guys have on the books?
Wow, put me on the spot, because I don't know exactly. Some of them go back a ways, but we do have a couple.
I guess, how much of a relief is this that you guys have finally been able to put a name to the face and start to, you know, put details together and finally know who she is? I mean, you know, we've gone through several sheriffs here who probably left here wondering the same things that you probably spent a lot of time wondering about too.
Yeah, it's, I think the most rewarding thing was just letting the family know, you know, what had happened to their mother, and she didn't just leave them.
For her kids, did you say both daughters, son and a daughter?
She's got several children, yeah,
Do you know how many?
4 that I'm
Four?
aware of.
So I guess when she disappeared, were they traveling as like a family unit or?
No, the kids were with the father.
Kids are with the father in Minnesota, and she was going from
She came-
California to Minnesota.
She came to visit them in Minnesota.
Did she ever make it to Minnesota?
Yes.
Yes. And then she left Minnesota, headed back to California? You don't know?
We don't know.
Right.
Yeah, we really don't know. Because it was nearly a month between the last time she was seen
and the January when she was found.
And forgive me, I wasn't paying attention. How long were her and her now ex-husband married before this all happened?
We know it was sometime in that summer. We don't know exactly the month. So I would say in the area of 6 months, 6 to 8 months.
Do you know if that husband had any other wives or girlfriends after that?
I don't know exactly what his story was, to be honest.
I know earlier you said there was a legal case involving him kind of around that time. Can you go into any kind of detail on that?
I don't have all the details on his legal cases, but I think you could probably find some of them.
Sure.
Do you have any idea of how long she maybe was in the creek?
At the time, they estimated she'd been there for 2 days.
Does she have any surviving siblings?
I don't know, to be honest, if she has any siblings that are surviving. I do know she was adopted, so.
I guess what are your guys' next steps? I mean, I know you kind of, it's an investigation now, but
Right.
you guys have solved a really big part in this case. I guess what are your next steps?
We've requested information from the agencies that were involved in some of the criminal things that we know about. And so we're waiting on those reports. You can imagine those reports aren't exactly modernized. And some of those agencies are working from home still, thanks to COVID. And so there's been kind of a delay in getting reports. And the next steps would be trying to talk to anybody that's still alive from that time frame that would have known her, you know, any known associates that we can get in contact with from out there.
Did you already say, specifically besides being in the creek, were there, any other signs that you could see, anything that had happened or gone on before she ended up there?
you know, just that she had some injuries to her head. That was, you know, those are things that we'd released when we were trying to figure out what had happened to her.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you submitted this for familial DNA? I know you got no gets back. Where did you then submit the DNA?
We did nothing with it. The FBI had entered that when they generated that profile from the sample they took last July, it's in their system, because then she's known to miss, you know, a known located person with no identity, so they leave her in. But the family's DNA that was collected, they build a profile, but they don't leave them in the system, because you don't want hits on people that are just family members. So my understanding is that around every 6 months, they periodically run that against what's in CODIS to see if there's a match. So when they ran in January, when they put her in January, there was no match. When Minnesota ran that query in February, that's when they got this potential match, and then eventually it was confirmed.
When you say Minnesota, what agency in Minnesota?
It's Department of Criminal Apprehension, I think, is what they call themselves.
And when you guys told the family, I know they're still on the side, but you know, what was their response? Were they happy? Were they just overwhelmed with emotion?
That was taken care of by Minnesota.
Did you say how and where the husband died?
I didn't. I don't know how he died.
Oh,
I just
okay.
know that he did pass away.
And that was in 2007?
2007.
Okay, you guys don't know how?
I don't know the circumstances around his death.
Can you make the pictures that you showed here available?
Yes.
I guess if you can, talk about the importance of, you know, here lately, there's been several cases that have been solved by people, you know, going into one of these ancestry websites or something like that, and you know, familial DNA being matched, and it turns out, you know, solving part of a case like this. I mean, you know, obviously, you know, before those steps were taken in Minnesota, you were still kind of back to square one.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the future of law enforcement, to be honest. There's a lot of the potential with DNA. All good? Anybody want to see the pictures again? Want to shoot anything?
Are you gonna email pictures to us? Can
I
you do that?
can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Thank you.
And I'm assuming we're looking at like honeymoon photos here or something?
That's my understanding, yes. Thank you for your time.